a robbery that has remained unsolved for 36 years. The frames still remain without their paintings, paintings that each hold great value, both in meaning and in price. The empty frames are still in their places for visitors to see. But let's see how the story of this case unfolded. When exactly did it begin, and why has it never come to an end? On March 18, 1990, at 1:24 a.m., two people dressed as police officers rang the museum's doorbell. The museum guard, with tired eyes, looked at the monitor. Two police officers with badges were standing at the door. The guard asked them,
"Who are you?"
"We are police. We've come to investigate a complaint."
And the guard, without checking any identification from them, opened the door. A mistake that cost $500 million.
"Are you alone?"
"No, my partner is checking the upper floors."
"Tell him to come here. There's an important matter we need to discuss with both of you."
After the guard told his colleague to come down, one of the police officers suddenly struck him a heavy blow to the head and knocked him unconscious. Then they waited for the second guard, who was coming downstairs. After he came down, they struck him as well and took him down. They tied both guards' hands and dragged them down to the basement, where they tied them to chairs. Now the police, or rather, the thieves, had dealt with the main problem, which was the guards. But there were other issues they needed to address. Let's get to their problems. Their first obstacle was the cameras. But, well, they weren't much of an obstacle. Why? First, it's 1990, and technology hadn't advanced that much. The camera image quality was very low, to the point that faces could barely be recognized. Second, the number of cameras was very few. Only 4 cameras in that entire large building. 1 covered the front door, and the rest covered the hallways. The rest of the building was camera-free. But despite all this, the thieves used a third solution to this problem, which we'll discuss later. Let's move on to the second problem, the motion sensors. To solve this problem, they had a very simple and basic solution available to them. And that solution was to cut the power from the fuse box in the basement of the building, where they had imprisoned the guards. The second solution to this problem was to move through the blind spots of the sensors. After all, it's 1990 and security systems have plenty of flaws. But well, in a way, it can be said that the thieves used another solution. And now, all electronic and human security layers have been neutralized. The thieves went after the artworks and began cutting them out of their frames. After about 81 minutes, the thieves took the valuable artworks with them and calmly and easily left the building. The day after the robbery, the employees came to the museum as usual, just like any other day, expecting the museum to be open. But unlike previous days, the museum was closed, and despite repeated knocking, no one answered. The employees waited outside the door for a few minutes, but still no one responded. Finally, one of the employees called the head of security. He arrived shortly after, opened the door with a key, and went looking for the guards. Upon seeing the condition of the museum, he realized how serious the situation was and quickly called the police. When the FBI agents arrived, they first went to the guards and made sure they were in good health. Then they moved on to examining the cameras, the security systems, and the empty frames. And then the interrogation of the guards began. The first interrogation was of Abath, because he had violated protocol and opened the door to unidentified individuals. After many questions, the young detective came to the conclusion that apparently, apart from opening the door, Abath had done nothing else wrong. However, he remained a suspect of collaborating with the thieves. The second person interrogated was Randy. He didn't have much information either, because he'd been knocked unconscious immediately after encountering the thieves. As a result, the detective didn't gain much information from the interrogations. After getting no results from the interrogations, the young detective went to review the evidence. First, he went to check the VHS tapes on which the camera footage was stored. If you remember, I mentioned that the thieves used a third method to bypass the cameras. That method was simply taking the VHS tapes from the night of the theft with them as they left. Just like that. And as a result, the detective got no results from the cameras either. After the cameras, the young detective went to check the motion sensors. Why hadn't they been activated? If you remember, regarding the motion sensors, I also mentioned that the thieves used a third method, which could be described as a combination of the previous ones. On the first floor, the thieves moved through the blind spots of the sensors. But on the second floor, in the Dutch room, the motion sensors were triggered and sent an alert. You might ask, if the sensors were triggered and sent an alert, why didn't anyone go after the thieves and arrest them? The point is that this robbery took place in 1990, and at that time, there was no direct connection between the alarm system and the police network. If an alert was generated, it would be sent to the guard's office on the ground floor, which, as it happens, did occur during this robbery. But well, both guards were out of commission. When the detective looked at the printer device, he saw that the printer had printed. Someone is in the Dutch room. Investigate immediately. Due to the incompleteness of the evidence, the case was not closed, and the thieves remain unidentified. All right, now let's go to the main suspects of the case. We have 4 suspects. Suspect number 1, David Turner. Why did the police suspect him? 1. History of theft and forgery. 2. Police informants had reported that he was involved in this robbery. 3. His appearance matched the officers who had come for the robbery that night. Suspect number 2, George Reisfelder. Why was he suspected? He was a friend and colleague of Turner. His appearance also matched the guard's description. He had a history of violent crimes and robbery. He died of a drug overdose shortly after the robbery, eliminating the opportunity for a thorough interrogation. 3. Robert Gentile. Why was he suspected? During a search of his home, notes and clues related to the artworks were found. Informants repeatedly mentioned his name. The FBI believed he had knowledge of the whereabouts of the artworks. 4. Rick Abath. Why was he suspected? He opened the door for the police officers against regulations. His behavior that night was described as unusual. It is said that he had left the side door open for a while. Some believe that the thieves might have been aware of his habits. However, no evidence of his complicity was ever found. And in the end, the case remained unsolved. All right, let's move on to the stolen artworks. The first piece is the concert, valued at approximately $300 million. The second piece is the Storm on the Sea of Galilee, valued at approximately $100 million. The third piece is A Lady and Gentleman in Black, valued at approximately $100 million. The fourth piece is Chez Tortoni, valued at approximately $30 million. In addition to the mentioned items, other artworks were also stolen, which had lower values compared to the ones listed. But one notable point remains. Some of the artworks in the museum are worth more than the stolen ones, like the Rape of Europa, valued at approximately $500 million, or some works by Raphael, valued at around $400 million. Why didn't the thieves steal these works? Three hypotheses have been raised regarding this issue. Hypothesis number 1. The heist was likely a commissioned theft, meaning someone specifically wanted certain paintings, not just any artwork. Hypothesis number 2. Perhaps some paintings were heavier and more difficult to carry, so the thieves decided not to take them. Hypothesis number 3. Maybe the thieves simply didn't know the value of the artworks and randomly chose a few. Now, which hypothesis do you think is most plausible? The case remained unsolved for years. But in 2015, another FBI agent reviewed the footage from the night before the robbery and realized that on March 17th, Gardabath had let someone else inside as well. The FBI agents put forward the hypothesis that perhaps Abath had let that man in to simulate the robbery. So they went back to Abath and interrogated him again, but again, nothing came of it. The agents checked all of Abath's banking and financial records, but saw no suspicious activity. And again, they came up empty-handed. The stolen artworks were never found. The museum even offered a reward of $10 million for their return, but the stolen pieces were never recovered. Thank you so much for watching the video to the end. Please be sure to write in the comments what you think happened to the artworks and which of the suspects you believe is likely the real thief.